we made the decision to make a change in leadership in our men's basketball program. In the last 26 days, the national interest in this job was unbelievable. We had over 200 applicants, countless phone calls and inquiries to me personally. This confirmed to us that this program is still relevant and still a brand in Division II basketball. The amount of time spent on this search, vetting candidates, trying to figure out what exactly we wanted was time consuming, and it was a process that we took very seriously. We not only needed to find a quality candidate, a person of character, a person of experience, but we also needed someone to embrace QU and this basketball community that is looking for our next leader to embrace them too. In the end, one person stood above the rest. And it's my pleasure to welcome back to Quincy University our next basketball coach, Steve Hawkins.
Wow, thank you. Dr. McGee, thank you.
You're welcome, Steve. And now for the ceremonial pinning. You're official.
Thank you. Howdy, everybody. How we doing?
Well, Steve.
Yeah? Great to see so many familiar faces out there. I mean, what a terrific day. I'm gonna keep my comments here fairly quick. Most of you that know me know that I can tell quite a few stories, so I'll do what I can to keep it quick with the thank yous, and I certainly want to get to your questions. First of all, I've got to thank Dr. McGee and obviously Josh Raby for the opportunity to come back home and to be around you all. It's a basketball crazy area. That was one of the real attractions about returning, and I wouldn't have been able to do this obviously without them, and so thank you so much for the opportunity to come back here and lead this program. The next people I need to thank are former players. You know, the former players here at Quincy University, but also my former players at Western Michigan. You know, we have coaches in here, and everybody can tell you that's ever coached, you can't win without players. Any success that I've had as a coach has been strictly because of the student athletes. If you want to give me credit for anything, maybe you can give me credit for being a good recruiter. There's an old saying, it's not about the X's and the O's, it's about the Johnnies and the Joes. You know, and that's the absolute truth when it comes to in college basketball. There's many ways to skin the cat when it comes to winning basketball games, but it still comes down at the college level anyway. Most of these guys, contrary to some of your popular beliefs, know what they're doing. And having said that, it comes down to who has the best players on most nights, and so recruiting will be a huge part of what my focus will be. The next thing is former assistant coaches, because you're only as good as your assistant coaches. And I've been really fortunate through my, when I was here last time I had hair. So let's just say that through my experience, we'll talk about being experienced, not age. But through my experiences, I've been really blessed to have some great assistant coaches. And again, I'm not going to name names because as soon as I do, I'm going to forget somebody, and I don't want to do that. And then finally, also the former head coaches that have been here. I've known them all. Mike Foster, after me, was my longtime assistant. Marty Bell, I got to know Marty. I actually sent one of my players at Western Michigan down here, Vaughan, Washington, to play here. And then Ryan Hallenthal. I consider Ryan a good friend and knew his dad real well also. So huge thanks for being the gatekeepers of this storied program, certainly ever since I left and long before I ever got here. And then finally, my wife, she's watching back home. Hi, dear. And then as well as my kids. Forgive me if I get emotional on this part. Because uprooting my family and bringing them here is the most difficult decision I've ever made. That's how much this place means to me. My wife is from Kalamazoo. That's all my kids know. And they are sacrificing a lot to be able to come here. And they will embrace this community. I really hope you embrace them as well. I'm wearing my daughter's lucky bracelet. Okay, enough of the gushy stuff. I've been asked a lot about how I feel about returning, and really the word, I've given it a lot of thought. When you drive 6 hours, you can think a lot, and the word that comes to mind is natural. It just feels natural. You know, my coaching journey, every coaching journey is unique, and they're strange, but all my ties, the great majority of my ties lead right back here to Quincy. You know, I had the opportunity to work for Mike Hanks at South Alabama back in 1984. And that was my first connection to Quincy. I didn't know it at the time, but I worked for Coach Hanks for 3 years. And after when we got done there, a guy named Jay Lowenthal was here at Quincy University, and he was part of Mike Hanks' staff at South Alabama. And Jay hired me to come here as a graduate assistant. So I was here for a year as a graduate assistant. And then after my year here, I ended up going to St. Andrews College in North Carolina, Laurinburg, North Carolina. And the person that got me that job was none other than John Wood Community College president, Mike Elby. Mike Elby was part of the staff also at South Alabama that Mike Hanks had. And so I got to know Mike at South Alabama. And so we had after he left St. Andrews, he went to North Carolina, Wilmington, and said, "Hey, Hawk, you know, there's a spot here in North Carolina I think you're gonna like." So I went down there for 2 years, and then I got hired back here by Brad Dunn, and he was here for a year, and then it was Cheryl Hanks, who was the athletic director at that time, that hired me to become the head coach, where I spent the next 9 years as the head coach. I owe absolutely everything to the Hanks family, absolutely everything. After I was done here at Quincy, I was hired at Western Michigan by a guy named Robert McCollum as an assistant coach. And Robert McCollum was, you can guess it, he was on Mike Hanks' staff at South Alabama. And so my tenure as a coach all comes down to who you know, not necessarily what you know. And it all goes back to the Hanks family, and it all comes right back here to Quincy. So all these years later, here I am. And on top of everything else, the person that ends up hiring me is Josh Raby, who I first met when he was a baseball player here. Again, when I had hair, but when he was a baseball player here, and I was a basketball coach. And so all these years, it comes full circle. And so yes, natural. It's natural that my journey ends up right back here in Quincy. So I'm excited about being here. I've always felt, let's move on to the future here. I've always felt QU was a hidden gem. I mentioned this in my statement. You know, I talked about it with Josh as well as Dr. McGee. I've always felt like it was a hidden gem. Well, it's time to come out of hiding. And that's why I'm here. We can't hide anymore. We got to let everybody know what we are all about here and what our basketball program is all about. After meeting with Josh and Dr. McGee and talking with them quite a bit, it became evident to me that we all have a shared vision. Our visions are very similar, and it's extremely important to a coach director and the head coach are all in a straight line. If any of us get out of line, it becomes difficult, but our vision is the same, and if we didn't think that we could be successful here, I know I wouldn't be here. So I have a lot of faith in the conversations that I had with both of them. And I think it's time to return QU to its rightful place amongst the nation's elite of competitive greatness when it comes to Division II basketball. And we're going to do that. If I did not feel like we could do that, I wouldn't have accepted the position. We're going to build the program the right way. We're going to do it with kids that are going to make you all proud, that are going to make this community proud, the city proud, as well as the alumni. We're going to carry ourselves, conduct ourselves the right way. During the recruiting process, we tell all of our guys the same thing. We want you to be a beast on the court and a gentleman off of it. And that'll be our gold standard. When are we going to be able to do this? As soon as possible. I'm not a patient guy by nature, and losing absolutely affects my health. And so I can't eat well. You can tell by looking at me, I like to eat. And so I can't eat well, I can't sleep well. It affects relationships. The dog runs away, all of it. And so we've got to get this up and running as soon as possible. And I'm excited about that. Our brand of basketball, it's going to be tough, going to be hard-nosed, going to be physical, we're going to foul a lot. I like tough kids. I think that the two worst things that could be said about a basketball player is you're soft or you're selfish. We will be neither of those things. We'll play basketball the right way, and we're going to identify that in the recruiting process long before they get here. The kids will buy in. They'll know exactly what they're signing up for. And our program's not going to be for everybody. It's not. They have to be bought in on the message that we're going to be selling. But I think it's one that's going to be attractive to the right kids. Finally, I want to be clear about why I'm here and why I coach. It's ultimately the very best classroom that I think that we can help young men become men. Okay, it truly is, this is not lip service. It truly is way more important to care about young men long after the ball is done bouncing for them. I'm here to help these young people set them up for the rest of their lives so that they become, it's fun when you coach, most of the time. It's fun when you coach. You can get on them, you go into tirades, years later they come back, they tell a bunch of stories about your tirades. I don't remember them because I'm mad at the time, and you have a lot of fun, but then years later, these kids become men. They become men with families. I talked to several of them on my way down here last night, and it becomes a real source of pride. Most of you know that I had the opportunity, my background was I worked for John Wooden, in my opinion, the greatest coach in any sport. And I worked for him for the better part of a decade, was basically a chauffeur in the morning, and in the afternoon, taking him back and forth to camps throughout the course of the summer. And one time, Coach Wooden was asked after a particularly great recruiting class, he stood in front of the microphone and he was asked, "Is this the best recruiting class you've ever had?" And Coach said, "I'll let you know in about 20 to 30 years. And that's why I'm here. Okay, we want to produce people, young people, that are going to be productive members out in society. And we'll let you know in about 20 to 30 years. It's funny because over the last couple of years, I've been able to recruit some of the kids that I coached here, some of their sons, now. And I don't know if that's funny or not, but it's the truth. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. And I can't tell you how excited I am about being here. I'm pumped. I can't wait to get going. You know, with that, go Hawks.